Welcome back to Detroit is Different. And today I have someone that is personal friend of mine, but more so a bigger friend to the artistic community throughout all of Detroit. And the artistic community right now, and it's sad, like many other communities intersect where institutions cross paths with community. It's some, I guess, rough waters, tough sledding. But we're not standing for that on Detroit is Different. Halima, how are you today?
I'm great, Kari. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, definitely. I got an email the other day, along with like other emails from like throughout last year and stuff like that about taking the fight to these institutions, not providing access to artists such as yourself. And there's so many other artists than you. I think your face is so known from, shout out to Sydney and them. It's like people be like, oh, the mural. The mural.
Yeah, people walk up to me all the time and are like, I
I've
know
seen
you. I've seen you.
I've seen you.
And I'm like,
Because you've seen the mural. So if you're driving down West Grand where it becomes East Grand and you see this big mural where a lot of people take pictures, even celebrities come and you see a lady with D earrings, that's Halima. But that's the coolness of it. So feeding into the artistry and when it's equitable and it's balanced and institutions actually give back to artists, we're all for that, you know?
Yep.
That's not necessarily what's happening now. What's the get down? What's happening where community needs to support a lot of the artists here in Detroit to make sure that things are balanced and institutions aren't shutting things down?
Okay. Yeah. Great question. So let me see. I'm going to start here. I think community does support artists. When we look at Detroiters and Detroit artists, musicians, culture creators, one of the oldest Black galleries, Arts Extended in the nation, started here and has been supported continuously. So, shout out Shirley Woodson, Dr. Cleety Taylor, Marion Stevens, for establishing that legacy of patrons of the art within our own community, right? So I want to separate that from like philanthropic and government and like big money spending.
As I call it, institutions.
Institutional spending, right? And I think what's not unique is that this happens all over the place. So we were doing a conference in LA and I was doing a training with LA Board of Arts and Culture, LA County. And, we looked at this audit and let's say if there was $205 million given out, 200 went to, top 3 museums, right? And then that 5 was split amongst about 85, 90 small organizations led by artists or people of color or, just not like the Getty, right? But what happens is, we put so much emphasis on like these huge institutions that they really stifle if they're not being really intentional about how to support the local ecosystem of artists and producers and culture creators. And, something similar is happening here. Now, what's unique and why this is a pivotal moment, I don't know. Do you have like a dun 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 dun?
Let's see. What sound
Do we have
effects
something
do
like
we-
that?
See, I rarely even touch on the sound effects, but for Halima, we're going to find,
Okay.
I got air horn, I got brass.
Pew, 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 pew.
We're going to go. There we go.
Perfect. All right. What is unique right now? Detroit is different, right? December 19th, the Wayne County Art Institute Authority is looking to ratify and sign a new agreement. We're going to call it the service agreement that governs the millage money that is taken from homeowners, taxpayers of Wayne County and given to the DIA. All right? So this thing is set up for 10 years. This is the moment where they, as our representatives, hold the most power. Because without them signing this document, the DIA does not get our millage money. Okay? We must reach out to the Wayne County Art Institute Authority and let them know we deserve 100% transparency. So every dollar that is collected, where does it go? What is it programmed for? How does it benefit us? And then what are the processes for public input? We need to be able to say, since it's our money, and the Tri-County area with the sister organizations over the next 10 years, it's looking like $333 billion. So it's not like pocket change, right? But like $330 million, right?
Well, it's unique that you point that out, and I just want to give some larger context to and for the Detroit is Different supporter. As people are so used to me giving my context in it. So it's a couple things to remember about the DIA. The DIA as an institution, the Detroit Institute of Arts, is an offshoot, as we know. It's a government-based entity and institution, but
it's not anymore.
It's
though.
not functioning. So it uses public money, but it has not a lot of public input on how it functions. And you can break down a lot of this. And I'm just speaking more so retroactively from a lot of things that got some other bigger headlines in the DIA. One of the biggest headlines that I can remember in the past, decade plus was Detroit experienced a bankruptcy. And during the bankruptcy...
Okay, we don't need to... Are we going to open up this whole can of worms?
I want to at least go to
it's
some of these points.
It's a whole can of worms.
It is, but I have to get this out just like I usually do for Detroit is Different people, because people need to understand that at that point, we saw so many outside entities that don't look anything like the natural and average legacy Detroiter, which it's his overwhelmingly majority black city, had a whole lot to do to protect what they considered the most precious art pieces, which we're not necessarily against it, but it's a lot of outside entities coming inside Detroit to tell us how to function and control assets of Detroit. And it's not equitable. The DIA has also experienced so much inter-turmoil when it comes to their hiring practices of black people, of Detroiters, their pay scale of black people and Detroiters.
Yes.
The DIA has also experienced a lot of headlines as far as when things were more, I guess you'd say, regionalized between this Tri-County authority. The DIA was saved, but we have the Black Museum that never really got included in this whole idea of institutions to save. So when we think about this, as a lot of stories here at Detroit is Different, we have to look at this through the lens of race, power dynamics, and control, and also white people coming in, using the assets of black people, and using the, I guess what I want to say, the understood bias in the trauma of the black experience to argue for more money and more resources, but never turning around and fairly and equitably distributing these resources. So it'll be maybe like one or two, as I call them, usually the term I use is like, wow, that's like a magic Negro. That's what I may say. Like they'll pick like one or two figures and they'll say, oh, this is the black person that we have. But it's such a wealth of artistry, and not just the artists themselves, a whole industry of art that functions and is so respected internationally in Detroit. And we have an institution that does not give that same balance. So when people ask the question of why it's not as inclusive, and we have, artists from Detroit traveling the world and the nation, and they can't even get that same love in the city. So I just wanted to give that framework as we continue in this. And that's why it's so important that we want to support art, but we want to make sure that it's equitable and it's inclusive, especially of the people that live here, pay taxes here, and are a part of the community. That's all.
Yes. And part of the thing, everything you said is right. And it's a whole bunch of cans of worms, right? We can dig into it. I kind of want to give a nutshell overview about some of those things that you spoke on, and then we can dive deeper. But absolutely. And when it boils down to is respect. Who do you talk to? Who's at a table? Who do you listen to? And how is that, with what weight is that carried, right? And that's like the whole, I think, part of it is really beautiful. And I know you talk to Sterling a lot, and his thing is like, Detroiters use art for healing. This is not the number one marketplace because we are here healing our souls, right?
My thing in Sterling, and you spoke to Sterling Toes, artist. I mean, right now I'm wearing this. This is an image Sterling was a part of, and from an album. And I love Sterling, but Sterling's perspective is not necessarily business. I'm a business guy more than Sterling. So it's about, I like that you said respect, because if I just have a passion for making great, let's just use widgets, is usually a business term, great sweet potato pies. And Halima's like, wow, you make great sweet potato pies. And then she turns around and sells that sweet potato pie for $1 million every day, and I'm barely able to keep my lights on, barely able to keep my kitchen.
I don't tell nobody it's your recipe.
And you
That's
don't
the thing.
let anybody,
I don't tell nobody.
Not only it's not my recipe, you just give me enough to kind of keep me going, knowing that you've profited from this. And that's the exploitation when we think of more that sadly America has had a history of exploiting the artistry and the talents of black people historically. So even though the black musician, the black visual artist, the black sculptor, the black, all artists may be doing this for healing, if you're going to profit from it,
how do we have a
you
respectful
have to be
conversation
equitable.
about that? Yeah.
That's all that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
I can't take some pieces from Halima and then go to China, become a billionaire over there and say, hey, Halima, if you got something new, just shoot that over to me in an email. And now I'm keep selling prints. And then one day she wakes up like searching for Sugar Man, somebody else that was in the Detroit area, and be like, damn, I'm Sugar Man. Because Sugar Man is happening all the time here.
And I'll say, and the Funk Brothers.
The Funk Brothers. I mean, so many. I mean,
it's
that's
so many.
And we're just, those are the documentaries that you're familiar with.
Right.
But you can make so many documentaries about the ties between Detroit artistry, especially black artists, that have been exploited by the industry and never been given their fair, equitable share of what's owed to them.
Yet created culture for the whole globe.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, yes. Right?
I mean, here's one that I guess I want to openly say. He was given a lot of shout outs, but like a lot of the style of right now what people may consider the greatest rapper in the world, and Eminem, and most people know like his whole style of Slim Shady was created from Bugs. Rest in peace, Bugs. You know what I'm saying? So it's things like that. It's like Elvis.
Right.
It's
right.
so many examples. The Beatles,
right.
the Rolling Stones, like it's taking
Picasso,
black culture.
Matisse.
Well, see, more in the visual art world, but I can only imagine that, like, it makes sense that as black people, we're so used to, like, well, they took that from a black guy, and you'd be like, damn, for real?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. You know that black man made the first watch.
Yeah, you'd be like, damn, for real?
Dang, Benjamin, sorry.
Yeah, it's like, man.
Right. Yeah.
Uncle Nearest whiskey is really Jack Daniels whiskey.
Yeah.
Like, these stories are so prevalent. So to watch it happen before our eyes and a wealth of artists, like I'm looking at when we think of our timeline, because we do share a lot of visual artist friends, most of my visual artist friends right now were traveling this past weekend to Miami to Art Basel, saying like, I really want opportunity, when I know and you know that the opportunities there are even more abundantly here, but it's an intentional disconnect. And this whole idea of we don't know how to connect and whatever is dismissive, especially when we have a art institution that goes out its way to not be inclusive.
Yes. Agreed on so many levels, right? So who do you choose to show? Who do you choose to partner with for arts and education programming? Who do you choose to highlight? There's so many ways for the DIA, I think, to better engage the arts ecosystem here in Detroit, because they are a tier 1 institution. Use that intentionally to lift folks up, because you are in a global cultural capital of the world, right? And also, this is the nutshell that I want to get to tonight, right? I would love if the listeners out here would take literally, it's like a 3-minute ask, right? 3-minute ask to write a public comment, because right now, again, like I said, this agreement that's going to be signed potentially on December 19th, but at least it's going to be up for discussion. It's going to govern the next decade of how the funding is moved and reported on and potentially programmed. So email WC Arts with an S authority at waynecounty.com. Again, WC Arts Authority at waynecounty.com. The subject line, you may want to put public comment for 1219 meeting. And definitely in the body of the email, ask that it be read into the public record. This is a public meeting. So ask that it be read into the public record.
And that's going to be all in graphics. I like that you said that and explicitly, but you're going to see, so you're looking at the graphics now, as we just gave somebody else some game that Halima gave me, connect me to Theo and the Detroit People's Platform, and talking about the budget the same way. You're going to see that information, and I want you to engage with this. It's very important. As we've seen, and Sterling's point is correct, like, we're using the art for healing, we're using the art for expression, but knowing that that's being exploited and used in other ways, that's what we're challenging.
That's the problem.
So the problem is, as more monies and an extension of this contract is given, it's like we just need to make sure that it's inclusive, and the same practices that have been exclusive and not representative of that of legacy Detroiters does not continue to happen.
Yep.
This institution needs to include us.
Yep.
And
I'm gonna tell you how to do that. I'm gonna cut you off.
Oh, go.
All right. So in the body of this email, this is what we're asking for, and we can put this on the screen too.
Yeah.
100% transparency and reporting on all public millage money. Okay. So if I'm giving you $100 million, you hold them accountable to reporting where that $100 million went. Don't tell me where 5 went, which is what they do right now. They report on 5%.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Number 2, a process for public input and participatory budgeting that is clearly defined and public, because there is none right now. So who knows who's making what decisions and how many people are not being included in that conversation. We need to have all of our expertise called in the room. You know, if you want to find a genius, get a group of people together, right? And it's in the midst. The next thing is there is a commitment of public dollars going towards the local arts ecosystem, prioritizing legacy Wayne County residents and people of the global majority, or often called people of color. So when we say a commitment, whatever you think is fair, 10%, you know, you're going to get 300 million over the next 10 years, kick back 10%. Find arts programming, teachers, muralists, people who are bootstrapping and making it happen, like Blackout Walls, like so many programs, Heritage Works. I mean, I could sit here and name 25 programs that I know that people are deeply involved in and literally making it happen out of so much in-kind and labor of love type of labor, right? Let's make a percentage. You know, there's a percentage for arts in New York. There's a percentage of arts in Minneapolis. Like, let's make a percentage for this public money that's going into this one institution to come back out into the community in some type of way. And bottom line, everybody working there should be making $15. Like, 15 ain't even enough, but the fact that people don't is a problem.
Yeah.
You must guarantee that every cafeteria worker, every janitor, every security guard who is guarding international treasures, walking marble floors, is making at least $15 an hour. Because guess what? White Castles can do it. Red Lobster can do it. So can the DIA.
Yeah.
So those are the four key elements. Participation, transparency, $15 minimum, and support the local ecosystem. And as many voices as possible. This email could be 2 sentences, 4 sentences, but the fact that they are being put on notice, the public is watching. We see what's happening. The last one was in secret. They didn't have public meetings. They didn't have public minutes. They never did an audit. They moved $70 million and never had an audit. Think about that.
Yeah. And then you also think about that being connected to a city that, and I still put an asterisk next to that bankruptcy, but if we're going to go in the world that they live in, that they needed to protect and then make it, a tri-county authority type thing, that was the geist that made it there. Even more reason for accountability and the watching of how these dollars are spent, and it should be transparent and shared amongst people in the public, because that's our tax dollars.
It's our tax dollars.
Your tax money.
Yes. That is our money, and it's not just going in and coming out.
Yeah.
It's going in and they're investing it. So they're not just taking the money and using it. Allegedly. We don't know because there's no accounting for it. But their endowment has grown to $500 million.
Wow.
So to tell me that you need $330 million more lets me know that you are just looking at us as like, that story about the endless rice bowl? He just, every day is rice in it. Right? No. This is intentional. I'm thankful for so many arts activists that have worked hard to kind of peel back the layers, peel back the veil. And this is where we're at this very pivotal moment. And I cannot tell you anybody's voice. Say who you are. Are you a homeowner? Are you a resident? Are you an artist? Are you a business owner? Are you a pastor? Are you a block club captain? Are you a teacher? Are you a firefighter? Like, say who you are as much as you want, and let these people know you are concerned about government transparency and having your voice heard.
Very much
Period.
so. And then furthermore, I mean, you're enlightening me. I learned so much from Halima. But we think of like $800 million possibly. And when we think of the inclusive, we're in Detroit. How interactive has the DIA been in your community? How interactive have they been in the schools with your children, your nieces, nephews, grandchildren? Mm-hmm. And they're walking around with this with an endowment that has half a bill. And it's not inclusive of us. So the question always needs to be raised of what's going on. Mm-hmm. You have a library system right now that's trying to scrape to stay alive and reopen and engage. Yes. The entity that does engage with us in the community.
Yes.
And they're scraping to stay alive. And then you have this other entity that is
literally across the street. Across the street.
And people feel like they can't even go inside.
Right.
Because it's that excluded.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, I super appreciate your time. I also learned a lot from you, Kari, and
thank you.
I can definitely send links. Because I'm a person, when I see something, I hear something, I'm like, what's the source? Mm-hmm. Like, give me that budget, give me that link, show it to me. Irrefutable.
Yes.
Which is why everything got to get so convoluted, because people be like, wait, that don't add up.
and we're with it, and that's the other thing. Me and Halima laughing like 70% of the time if you ever see us off. We can't get serious, but that's the beauty of life and the duality. We'll get serious, then start laughing, and serious, then laughing. But this is a serious matter.
Yeah.
And with it, we just want to make sure, because there's so many artists here and we're sick of it. I know you all are used to this.
Right.
There's so many artists that have left Detroit because they feel as though they can't sustain a living. Kind of going back to Sterling's point originally.
Right.
This ain't the place to actually sustain yourself as an artist.
Right.
But It's an institution that's supposed to sustain the arts here with $500 million when we have so much talent leaving and going to Los Angeles, Tokyo, New York.
Right.
I mean, it's people even getting up and going, to Ohio because they can't sustain themselves here.
Right.
So it's like, what is going on? We want to keep this talent pool here. We want to
and help people thrive.
Yeah, we want to see we want to see the new Gilda Snowden stay in this space. We want to see another Hubert Massey stay in this space, not be like, yo, man, it was just too hard in the D because nobody connects to art.
Right.
Even though we got an institution that's bringing in, spending money somewhere.
Right.
Because that's the importance as far as from the Kari Frazier angle. And when I have this discussion with Sterling, because I know I'm going to have it, that's the angle I'm going to pitch to him. I'm going to be like, yeah, it is we're doing this out of passion. They're doing it out of hope. They're doing it through trauma and expression. But they find themselves going to L.A. Mm-hmm. They find themselves going to New York. And it's monies here that could be invested in them. Mm-hmm. So why isn't it? Mm-hmm. Because of the exploitation that these institutions have historically done, and I'm going to say it for, black folk.
Yeah. I'll say black and brown. When
black and
you
brown,
read Christopher Columbus journals, right?
Mm-hmm.
These people are so kind. They'll make excellent servants, right? Like, what? And it's still kind of what we're rocking with today. Why Puerto Rico and Guam don't get to vote. Why, it's so deep how much the narrative of black and brown equal lesser than, not fully human, not incapable of understanding Anglo-Saxon laws and rules, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But really, that's inverted. That's backwards, right? How do these institutions understand their position and their ability to actually make the maximal impact for thriving in, people's lives where they are, know? And, I think, part of it is digging into the narrative. Part of it is kind of really going deep. It's not DEI. It's not, it's a black person at the table. It's really digging deep into what is driving our policies, our actions. What are those undergirding beliefs that we hold that doesn't allow us to have a conversation with a person, know?
And it's also the cultural connection and cultural understanding as well, because clearly, and I can only imagine the millions of dollars for that, but this Van Gogh exhibit has come back to Detroit 3 times.
Right.
And it's funded, but you can't tell me that we couldn't make an immersive experience with so much of the wealth of black artists around here. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying let's replicate doing this with Van Gogh, let's bring in the black arts in the black city so that we can connect to the black artist version of this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's how we need to be thinking here.
Yep.
In Detroit. This is Detroit. That's what I want.
Yep.
That's what the world wants. I mean, you saw one of the. Well, then again, I'm not really in the theater,
okay.
but clearly people just took hip hop, a version of hip hop, and then just rapped about the Constitution, and it's the greatest Broadway musical they say ever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So imagine if you just took these same pieces from, as you say, not people of color, and mix that in with the flavor and the culture of what we offer. It's going to be such a great immersive experience, but it takes the institutions to see that and put that in place and make that happen.
And have processes.
Yeah.
Processes for input, processes for participation, right? It's not just, we have a great idea. We'll include you here, right? But really, what are the programmatic decisions being made? How is the public money being spent? Mm-hmm. If you're only telling me about $5 after I just gave you $100, we have a problem.
Yeah, it's broken up many relationships.
Right?
It's family reunions that are separated because of stuff like that.
Exactly. You spent how much on them t-shirts?
Exactly.
Dang, Kari. I don't want to come to your family reunion.
Separated. It's like the fish fry only got coleslaw. How? I'm just messing with you. Coleslaw and fish sticks. Oh, man.
Somebody got ripped off here.
Exactly. But yeah, so the information will be there. Make sure you engage. I'm going to get this. This is a special. I guess we're going to be doing more special reports as I connect. And you all need to connect. Be engaged as we connect in this platform. It's community. We're engaged here because that's what we about. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kari. Have a great one.
You too. Peace.
Peace.